It is known as a common language among people of diverse languages. With that definition in mind, we can agree that the current international business lingua franca is English. But with the rise of China spreading Chinese companies around the globe, along with the Chinese language, will the lingua franca of tomorrow be Chinese? Or will it be a whole different language altogether? Good afternoon everyone, my name is Joshua, and today I'll be answering the question, will the lingua franca of business continue to be English? Before we jump into the discussion, let's take a look at how English became the global language in the first place. First being colonization. The British Empire colonized over 50 countries around the world in the 20th century. That's almost a quarter of the world. As a result, English speakers were scattered across the globe, along with the English language. Second reason is due to economic prowess. Both the US and the UK thrived during the Industrial Revolution, which sparked international trade, spreading the use of English along with it. Both countries have remained the main political powers in the world, hence the use of English is still prominent today. However, there is one obstacle for English to stay as the international lingua franca of business, and that is China. China has flourished ever since they opened the doors to the world in the late 1970s. The economy has boomed, even surpassing the EU's economy. And, in fact, the Chinese language has even more speakers than English. Then will the lingua franca of tomorrow be Chinese? Let's dive into the statistics and see why English is still the business language of tomorrow. Let's take a look at how many people actually speak the language. There's a famous fact that there's actually more Chinese speakers than English speakers, which, as you can see, is true. But this is a misconception, as we are actually looking at the number of native speakers, that is people that use it as a first language. If we look at the total number of speakers, we can see that English still edges out Chinese as the most widely spoken language in the world. If we dive deeper into the statistics, we can see that Chinese is spread across 24 countries and is only an official language in a handful of them. If we compare these to the number of Spanish and English, we can see that both languages are more widespread, with English being the most widespread language in the world, with more than double the countries of China. And linking back to economic power, English is the official language of almost half of the G7 countries and a quarter of the G20 countries. Speaking about economic strength, we see that the USA is still leading as the most powerful country in terms of economic power, holding almost a quarter of the world's GDP. But China is not far behind. With the rapid growth rate of the country, we can see China dethrone US in a little more than a decade. So the global language by then should be Chinese, right? Well, not exactly. If you consider how big China's population is, the most populated in fact, we can see it's unfair to compare GDP alone. Hence, the more accurate number to compare should be GDP per capita. As you can see, if we factor in the population size, US GDP per capita is 6 times that of China. In fact, with this number, China isn't even considered a high-income country and is categorized as an upper mid-income country. So China still has some way to go. Last but not least, we need to look at the languages itself to see which one is better suited as a lingua franca. There are a few characteristics that a lingua franca needs to possess, that is, easy to write, read, listen, and speak. And if you compare the characteristics of these two, you can see why English is still more suitable. English is a phonetical language, meaning it has an alphabetical system, making it easy to read and write. Chinese, on the other hand, has over 10,000 logographic characters, which needs to be memorized one by one. Another thing is that Chinese is dependent on tones, meaning that a syllable pronounced in a different tone conveys a different meaning, making listening and speaking extremely difficult. English, on the other hand, is not tone dependent. It has adapted to the diverse tongues around the world, making it an excellent instrument of international communication. Overall, English is much more suitable to be lingua franca compared to Chinese. To conclude, it is uncertain whether the global language of business will change. Who knows, maybe if China takes over the world, Chinese will be the global language. But I can confidently say this, that within the next 50 years or so, the lingua franca of business will continue to be English. Thank you.